Hi, everybody.
We're back.
We are back. We took a little bit of a sabbatical,
We did.
but we are back at
Cup
of Joe in Twin Lakes,
Wisconsin.
And
Yep.
I have my mug today, but Nancy forgot hers.
But I have coffee.
But she does. So
So.
that's all we need to know.
But I'm sad about that.
I
So,
know.
I am Nancy Jo Nelson. I'm a speaker, a coach, an award-winning author. I also sing.
Yes.
This is my book that I wrote, Lessons from the Ledge, a little book about big stuff. We all have our stories, we all have our experiences. Mine has to do with losing my husband to suicide 11 years ago now. This is a memoir. Also going to be doing an audiobook of that coming up shortly, as well as an upload for Kindle, so an ebook. So that is my story. Like I said, coach, award-winning author, fellow human being.
Yes, and you're sticking to it.
I'm sticking to that. So
Okay, my turn. I'm Diane Iser, and I'm the owner of New Day Aging. That is my business where I am a patient and senior advocate. We will be having an upcoming show that will deal with the topic of aging. I have a very proactive professional and personal approach to aging, and we will, in future shows, definitely be hitting on the topic of our parents aging and us as an older adult children, how we navigate those waters. So that is a little bit about who I am for right now. And now I'm going to swing it back to Nancy because she's got some info, and I do too, with respect to what we're going to be doing moving down the road with our...
yeah, one of the things that came up, I was at my 40th class reunion. Yay, friend, class of 81. And a big topic that seemed to tie us all together really well was the how do you best take care of your aging parents. There's so much out there. There's so much information we don't have, we wish we had. There's options. How do we best navigate all of that? And with that being Diane's background, I thought, well, I'm going to throw that question out onto Facebook and see what kind of wisdom, questions, comments, experiences people have had on that in order to do an additional or a show going into the future. And I think it'll probably be not only a YouTube thing like we're doing here, but we're also going to be moving into the world of podcasts.
Yay!
So if you have any ideas, leave them in the comment box below. Like us, share us, subscribe to this, and let us know what kind of ideas you might have for the name for a podcast for us. We are going to be dealing specifically with a lot of questions around that place we're at in this chapter of our life of how best to just navigate this whole new, set of issues of whatever situations as far as taking care of elderly people. We just had my mom's 90th birthday party on last Saturday, so I'm right in the thick of it, and many of us are, and all want to do the very best we can, both for our aging parents as well as for our own selves. So
Right, and I also think one of the things that's happened since last year because of the pandemic is that a lot of people have come up against obstacles and barriers on how they can continue to be actively and physically in their aging parents' lives.
right, like there wasn't enough already.
Like there
that we had
wasn't
to throw
enough
some more in
already,
there.
but now the pandemic complicated the issues of family members being able to enter facilities where their parents live. You know, for instance, they might live in an assisted living center, they might live in a memory care center. So what that poses new challenges, and people just don't know what they can and can't do. And I, as a seniors advocate, with my business and my background both in school and professionally, can navigate those waters, can teach people. I am always about empowering people. Knowledge is power.
Right.
And I want people to be their own best advocate, whether it is for themselves in their aging process or whether it is for their older
Right.
parent.
On their
So,
behalf, definitely.
right.
And there's so many legalities, and there's big scary words that get thrown around, and are they really real, and do they really have any teeth, but we think they do, and a lot of things. And the interesting thing, as we were talking about some of these questions that were coming up is that it all ties into a lot of the other things that we've covered in our previous videos about judgment, about fear, about letting go of outcomes, and all of those kinds of things. It's all tied in. And again, that's one of those, wherever we go, there we are. So the better we are as individuals, and our own awareness and understanding what makes us tick, etc., the better able we are to bring that healthy perspective to the aging questions and to the way we deal with our elders and how we deal with the institutions and the various things. So it all ties all together, and that was fascinating to me to really start thinking about all of that.
So that's what you have to look forward to coming up. But today Nancy's going to introduce, what are we talking about, Nancy?
We're talking about what's in your wake.
What's in your wake?
So one of the weeks that we were on sabbatical was spent on Diane's boat. And I got to thinking that that was a really great analogy as to we are our boat, we're on this, we're in this water
Sea
of life.
Right, water of life.
And we have a choice as to what we leave in our wake. If you've been on a boat, you know there's a big wake that can be, that comes out of the engine being down in the water, and people will wakeboard on it, they'll ski over it, they'll whatever. We always are impacted by that. So we're going to talk about what's in ours.
Right, and I want to give great visualization to this. So I'm driving my boat, okay, and we can use the analogy that I'm driving my boat, and this is my life. I'm driving my life, and as the captain of my ship, when I am driving my boat, I'm leaving a wake behind me. And that wake that I leave behind me is the only wake that I have say over, okay? What I leave behind me in my life is the only thing I have say over. I don't have say over what the guy that's coming towards me is doing in his boat with his wake. His wake can come past me. It could be a big wake which rocks my boat. It could be a minimal wake that I don't even feel. But I think if you keep that in mind as we're about to talk, it'll make a lot of sense too if you can visualize that.
Right.
So you are in control of the boat of your life. You are in control of it as it's on the water of life, the sea of life, the lake of life, whatever you want to call it. And this might also help you to realize that this is about what do we do in our life currently that we're going to leave behind us, right? The wake's back here.
Right.
So
right.
What are we reinforcing in life? What are we showing our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, the kids that maybe you teach a catechism class at a Catholic, church or something like that, for lack of a better thing to say at this point. But you get my drift, which is what are we doing in our present life that is going to leave either a great impact for the better, or it's going to leave something that isn't for the better that might be carried on for generations because it is negative. You can leave positive for the generations behind you, and you can leave negative too. Negative doesn't magically go away. So keep that in mind as we talk about it.
Right, and that is a choice.
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
a lot of times, especially recently, we felt like we didn't have a lot of choosing to be able to do. We're kind of being told. And you have that choice every single day as to how you choose to show up in the world. You have that opportunity every day to choose what kind of a wake you leave as you navigate the waters of life.
Right.
And it's a great point. One of the things that I was thinking about too was other boats might, when you're out boating, especially in this area, might lead, might cut you off, or
right.
Be going faster, or whatever the case might be, and their wake will affect you. Right?
Yes.
It will hit the side of your boat. It will. We know as skippers of our boats that the best way to deal with the wake is to hit it head on, right, and let it basically pass underneath the boat.
Right.
And it will pass. That's the whole point of it. We don't spend our life on top of somebody else's wake. That whatever it is, good, bad, big, small, whatever, it passes underneath us and goes out that other way. So it can be very hard sometimes when you're in the midst of a crowded lake to know that it's going to pass. It's going to go through. It's going to go under the boat. The boat, you are going to be able to navigate that. You're not going to go down. You're not sinking. You're not tipping over. You're going to be able to ride that wave.
Exactly. And here's great. This is Nancy doesn't even know I'm going to say this. So I was in Tennessee last week, and I was on a boat rented with friends. And this is a perfect example of what we're trying to convey about you only have say over your boat of life. You don't have say over someone else's. So my friend was getting ready to pull into the marina. We were done with the boat. And I, having a boat and being alert to everything around me, saw another boat coming towards him. And this boat was coming towards him at a speed which led me to believe from experience that one of two people had to slow down. So I, being in the position of experience, I turned to him and said, John, there's a boat coming over there. I warned him. Now, I warned him, but it was up to John what John chose to do. Mm-hmm. And John, having the right of way, continued to move forward. My point is this: you are going to find at times, both in life and in boating, people are going to do things that don't allow you to stay the course when you have the right of way. And it's how you handle that. What do you do? I tell people this all the time.
Do you play chicken?
Right, exactly right.
That's all I could think of is they're playing chicken.
Exactly right. But what I do is as a boater, as someone who actually has a boat, when someone is doing something that could jeopardize my well-being, I could be right as Roosevelt about staying the course. But you know what? Sometimes you just have to know when to pull over. Sometimes you have to know when to slow down. And my goal in boating is to have a pleasurable experience. I can scream and jump up and down on my boat and yell at that person all I want. But when the day comes to an end, I don't have say on what that person does, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right.
That's it. I don't. All I have say to is how I respond to what they've done. And that, what we're talking about in the analogy of life is that there are a lot of things that are going to come at us. There's been a lot of things that have come at us in the last year in 2020 that have been controlling, where they have dented our psyches into believing that we don't have the right to choose our path. We don't have the right to slow down when we need to slow down, or turn in another direction to avoid a collision with someone or something, an idea, right? An ideal, whatever it is. And that is what we're talking about when it comes to boating and what you're leaving in your wake. What are you showing your children on the way you respond to that person that comes at you on the water and is out of control, and you can't control them? There's nothing you can do. All you can do as the captain of your ship is figure out how to maybe defensively back away, stop, whatever it is. And
and do what's right for you to take care of you and your boat.
Exactly right.
Whether you're, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, were you right or wrong, if your boat's in pieces.
That's
right?
my point.
It's sort of like,
that's my point.
Great. Okay.
So you could say you're right.
You got no boat now.
You got no boat.
Right.
And now what have you left in your wake? You've left destruction.
Right.
And I think that is something that people really, really need to think about right now. You can be as right as you want to be on an array of topics in this day and age, in this last year plus. But the bottom line is, what's behind you in your wake? Are you leaving a behavior of hatred? Are you leaving a behavior of love? Are you leaving a behavior of tolerance? Or are you leaving a behavior of bullyism? These are things that right now people need to think about. And a lot of people don't think about it because they're on automatic pilot, Nancy. What did we talk about in the past? They're on automatic pilot. Swept up by the current. Swept up by the current of that boat that came at them like a freight train and monopolized them and said, wait a minute, I'm a big boat. I've got your attention now. Now you're in my wake. You do things my way. No, that isn't the case.
Right, or I'm the tugboat and I'm going to put you where I want you to be.
Exactly right.
And it's interesting too. Who taught you how to drive your boat? Because depending on who you learn, I don't think we're innately born knowing how to navigate the water.
Life, right, the life.
Right?
We're not.
So depending on who teaches you, you could have someone teach you who has never been in a situation where there was more than one boat on a water in their life, whatever,
Right.
never affected by anyone. You could be taught by someone who is very aggressive in the way that they view the maritime rules, right? There's all
Right.
kinds of different things.
Right.
And so you have to really kind of go back to that place too and say, okay, well, where did I learn how to do this? Where did I learn how to drive this boat? How do I know that port and starboard are these things and blah, 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 right? So it's going back to that as well. And it all translates to our own selves for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And, we are the boat. And the thing for me that helps me the most, tool, if you will, is that remembrance that wake, it's water, it ripples, it comes under, and it passes through.
It's
Right.
fluid.
It is.
So
it's
meaning
not
it's ever
always
changing.
there. You
It's
don't
ever
have
changing.
you don't
Right.
have that wall of wake that sits under the boat, and I think the problem that a lot of people can have is that when the ego gets involved, you think that your wake should be far longer lasting than it truly is to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of accepting the fact that it's a fleeting thing, and it can leave a good feeling,
Right.
or it can leave a negative feeling. I would hope that if I interact with somebody in my boat, on my water, in my life,
Right.
and the wake that I leave, I would hope would be something that gave somebody, like it was great for water skiing, it was great for wakeboarding,
Joy, gave them
it
a
was a
moment
good
of joy.
thing. They want
Right.
to come back and go like, hey, I want some more of that wake,
Right.
instead of wake in a no wake zone, or reckless, or wrong, whatever it might be. So what kind of like an impression or a taste in someone's mouth do you leave when you leave a conversation? Do they want more interaction with you, or are they glad to be rid of you and just want your wake to pass underneath them and get the heck out because they don't want to be there with that? It's a fascinating analogy.
Right.
In looking at the world that way, and and it goes along with when, from whatever place, negative feelings come upon us, or feelings that are heavy and burdensome, and I can look at it in the case of me with grief. When a wave of grief appears from wherever, whyever, I hear a song, I smell a smell, I see something, whatever it might be,
Trigger a memory.
and I feel that. I've always said to myself, it's in my book, I've said to you, Diane,
Mm-hmm.
ride the wave,
Right.
the wave. And
Right.
at that point, I jump out of my boat that I'm sailing, and I become a surfer, and I hop on the surfboard, and I make the best out of that wave, knowing that it will eventually curl and die and bring me back to the shore again.
Right.
Even when I was in a place that felt very big and overwhelming, and again, to allow that to just kind of ride it out, let it go through, because it doesn't last forever. And a lot of times, it's just sort of like, if you think about the ocean, every day the tide goes out, every day the tide comes in, there is always constant
Change.
waves and motion, right?
Right.
Change.
Change.
All
Nothing
the time.
stays the same.
Right.
And that's a great analogy for what could be going on in your life today. You could be facing obstacles that are huge in your life, and feeling that those obstacles are not going to change. But they are going to change, because life is fluid.
Right.
Life does not stay the same. We might think that it does, because sometimes things happen in our wake that feel like they last for a very long time. But the whole point is that there's always change going on. The wave goes up like this, it plateaus, and then it comes down each and every time.
Right.
So whatever you're looking at right now and you're facing that feels like that wave, it's time to hop off your boat, grab the surfboard like Nancy said, and just ride that wave until it dissipates, until
Right.
there's some form of peace back in your life, some form of normalcy that allows you to feel that you've got some say over where you're headed in your boat. And that, right now, I think more than ever, people are in need. Nancy and I both feel this way. People are in need of hearing the good news that you still have say over what goes on in your life. There is such a push right now, and I'm going to address this head on. There's such a push right now for us to all be thinking alike and doing the same thing. Well, you know what? We were created as individuals. That's the way it is in a nutshell. And when you say that we all need to think alike and act alike and do the same things alike, what you are doing is you are actually depriving yourself of the wonderful human being that you are, flaws and all, of being an individual.
Right.
There's something to be said. If we were meant to all be clones, we'd all be clones.
Well,
but
we'd
we're
all
not.
be very beige.
We'd
you
be
know?
beige, absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And we're not beige. And that's the beauty of being human. We are flawed people that are trying to do the best we can during any day in our lives. But the beauty of it is we all bring something unique to life and who we are. And that is to be cherished. That is not to be turned into beige. So that's why we're talking about this subject, which is, what are you leaving in that wake? What are you leaving when you go outside and you interact with other people? What are you leaving? Are you looking people in the eye right now? Are you engaging? Do you trust people right now? I'm going to ask these questions, and these are questions just to think about. Are you trusting when you see a stranger on the street? I am. I trust that stranger on the street, because when I trust that stranger on the street, I feel good. Mm-hmm. I feel better. Every ounce of my energy comes from a good place. What are you doing when you're walking down the street? Are you happy to be outside? I mean, these are things that have been somewhat changed for us since last year.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is we were all able in some way to kind of think we had control, because things just went along the way that they always had gone along, and we were very complacent. We were very much just doing our thing, right? And then something comes along, like 2 weeks to flatten the curve a year ago, and suddenly everyone realizes that there are things in this world that are not in
our control, right?
Which the reality of it is nothing is, except how we choose to respond, right?
Respond.
You have the control. Do you want to hop on the surfboard and ride that wave through, or are you going to sit and white knuckle it and have a miserable time? You know, that is a choice that's available for you. One of the things that I found by really being able to, and it wasn't easy to do, and I still struggle with it, is realizing that I don't have control over how someone else does whatever they do in their own life. I don't have that control. I drive my boat my way. I do the things that, you know, I bloom where I'm planted in the places that I can. But one of the things that I noticed is when you can be aware enough and comfortable enough with realizing that you don't have control, and when that wave comes and you're going to hop on that surfboard, I've had some amazing views at the top of that swell.
Right.
You know, there's been some really amazing things that I've seen and learned at the top of that. I also knew that I needed to make sure that I kept on breathing, because at some point in time, I'm going down. And what happens when the surfboard hits the bottom and you go under the whatever, you know, you take that breath to get you to hold it long enough to get back to that shore where you can feel solid again.
Right.
But if you can embrace the fact, and it is a fact that we don't have control, if you can embrace that fact, it can be a really, really cool ride.
Right, exactly.
Does it mean that there aren't scary times? Absolutely not. Does it mean that there aren't, you know, times we forget these things? Where it's all part of being human, for crying out loud. And again, it goes back to that, how hard are you on yourself? Can you look at this all as a learning curve? Right. You know, as a we're going to make mistakes, if you want to call them that, but everything that we do is an opportunity to learn. If we can be open enough and present enough to really absorb the lessons that we're that
Right.
we're learning.
And to go through the choppy waters.
Right,
And
because there's going to be choppy waters, okay?
Yeah, there's
it's up to
always.
you whether or not you want to like clutch and barf over the side, or if you want to like go, yee, whoa,
Go
wow,
right
you
at
know?
that. Go right at it.
Knowing
Go in
that
boat. 'Cause
all
you're
the
gonna-
water will not be choppy all the time.
That's right. You're going to go right through it, and
Right.
you're going to come out the other side. The water's going to be calm.
Yeah.
Life is going to be peaceful, and you're going to feel that peace from the standpoint that you were driving your boat,
Right.
not someone else. Someone else cannot drive your boat. Yes, okay. Can someone come into my boat and drive my boat? Right, Nancy? You could come drive my boat, but here's the interesting point. I'm the one who's most comfortable.
Plus, you gave me permission unless
Plus,
I came out and stole your
Thank
boat.
you. Oh, damn.
You
you're
gave
good.
me the permission to
I
drive
gave
your
you
boat for a while.
permission. Exactly.
And I would
correct.
do that
You
sometimes.
didn't bully. You didn't come in and say, "I want to drive your boat." Okay, and that's another thing to think of in leaving your. What are you leaving in your wake?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where are you overstepping boundaries and expecting that you have the right to tell someone else how to drive their
Or
boat?
you're letting somebody else on your boat and driving it and going like, why do I feel so weird? Why do I
Right.
so out of control? Well, because you're not driving your boat.
Well,
Someone else is.
you handed your
There
power
are people that don't
over.
want anybody else to even drive their car. They want to be the person who drives it.
Right.
Right? We all have those things that we know about ourselves. And this is a fascinating whole analogy, I think, and very apt.
Yes.
Because that really, there's so many facets to that.
If it's the time, if it's the times we're in, and I think that I would like to challenge people that watch this video. I'd like to challenge you to take one day, and be present to what we're talking about. Be present to your interactions. Be present to the outcome of the choices you make that you made driving your boat that day. How do you feel at the end of the day? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel accomplished? Do you feel like someone ran over you? Do you feel like you are out of control? These are all variables that enter in to driving your boat, that if you were to take the time to be aware, self-aware, you might begin to see patterns that you can change for the better. Some behaviors you can toss aside and say, this isn't working for me. I don't want to feel like this
Right.
anymore. But this
It's
is
putting my boat in neutral,
It's
and
putting
all
my
I'm
boat in
doing is
neutral
revving
and
my
letting the
engine.
sea
I'm
do
not
this.
going anywhere.
right, and letting the
Right.
sea, the water, just toss you all
Right,
over the place.
right.
And that's kind of, unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at right now in this country. We are being tossed around. Some of us, not all of us, are being tossed around because we aren't driving our boat. We've put it into neutral, or we've turned the key off, and we're letting the sea, the tumultuous
Right.
sea of life, just beat the crap out of us. And then we're wondering why we're seasick. We're wondering why we don't feel good, when the bottom line is turn the key, folks. Turn the key, get behind the wheel,
Right.
and start driving forward, moving ahead, and feeling
Right.
that you have your power, your personal power intact.
Right. Well, whose wake are we letting affect us?
Yeah,
If
right.
I have
Somebody
my
else's
boat
wake.
and I'm in neutral, or I turn off the engine and I'm just floating, or I drop anchor, I'm at the mercy of every other boat that goes by, every other wind that blows.
Right.
My boat is impacted by that because I'm sort of a sitting duck.
Right.
Where if I can just turn the power on and move myself forward in
Right.
some way, shape, or form, I'm not as impacted by that. I'm not as influenced by that because I'm creating my own wake. I am not just sitting passively by, being impacted by everybody else's. So, and if doing that for a day feels daunting,
Break it down.
do it for an hour.
Do it for an hour.
Do it for 10
Absolutely.
minutes, you know? And the other thing that I'd like to challenge everybody to do is to try to be present enough to look around at typical things in your life and look at the analogies, because that's been one of the things that I found so really interesting, is just in the day-to-day things that you do. You know, I have a whole chapter in my next book about power washing my deck. I have a chapter about mowing my lawn, and how those things all can translate into analogies about life and how we choose to live it, because each of us has that gift, and we're all very, very amazing people.
Yes, we
Every
are.
one of us. And I think we forget about that. We get very hard on ourselves.
Because remember, we're individuals.
Right, absolutely.
We're amazing individuals.
Right, and we all have our own stories, our own
Right.
journeys, our own experiences. There's no way that I can get into anyone else's shoes. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't empathy that
Right.
is something that's grace we give to other people. You know, there's a part of me that I can sit in the place of someone who is so completely terrified. I'm not, but I certainly can sit in that place of someone who is and go, I can't. That doesn't feel good, or I have empathy for where they're at in life, where they're at in their own journey. I can empathize with somebody who's out on a boat and realizes that they're not necessarily really equipped to be sailing that boat of that size, because there's so many dials and things to remember and all of that. You know, that maybe they would be better starting in a smaller boat and moving up into the larger boat as they got their sea legs, if you will.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of power in our powerlessness.
Right.
And everything we're seeing right now is simply, let's go 5,000 foot view. It's simply the container it's all held in, and it's the method by which a lot of people had to come to terms with a lot of things that they probably wouldn't have come to terms with in the same time frame.
Right. Had life not changed the way
Right.
life has changed in the last year plus.
Right.
So,
Well, on that note,
yes.
please like,
Yes.
share, subscribe, leave comments below about different analogies you might have or things that you may have experienced in your own boating life.
Yes.
And look for as we get closer to releasing the podcast, etc. We'll let you know what it's called. Give us suggestions,
Please do.
and that will be a lot more focused on navigating the waters of caring for those we love.
You got it. Till next time.
Tap
Bye.
into your badass.
Tap into your badass. Bye.